Okay, so today I want to talk about being a good and holy, virtuous person in today's world. Now, I feel like, it is very countercultural, there we go, to be holy in today's world. And actually, I feel like it's like politically incorrect to be holy in today's world. And so that's kind of what today's video is about, because we are constantly being told that it's a selfie world and a selfish world that we live in, and it's all about having yourself first, others second, and God last. And that is the exact opposite that we as Christians should be living. We should always, always be putting God number one in our life, in every single thing in our life. He should be number one. And what I mean by that is he should be number one in every decision making that we have. Like as parents, should our children go to this school or that school? And it should be all about what God wants, not necessarily what we want, because we might not always know what's best for ourselves, if that makes sense. So then number two, we should have others before ourselves. We should be serving other people and loving other people before ourselves. And that is so opposite of what the world says. The world says, first take care of yourself, be good to yourself, do what makes you feel good first and foremost, and then others, and usually God's not even in that equation. And that is so not the truth. By giving, we receive. And to give an example of that, my husband and we moved to China a while ago. And with that, I found out I was pregnant right before we left. And so I was in China for only 4 months, and it was supposed to be a year trip that we were there through his work. And so what happened was I went home, had the baby, and thankfully my husband could fly home with that. He, got to see the birth and everything, but he had to go back to China for 7 months without me. And I was living in a new place where I didn't know a single person. I had 3 children. I think they were all 4 and under at the time. And I didn't have my husband there. And it was the hardest time of my life. And it was the most amazing time of my life in many ways, because it really opened my eyes to, I had no choice but to be constantly giving of myself. Constantly. It was from the time I woke up till the time I woke up, 24/7, in the middle of the night if a child cried, it was me. It was all on me. And so it was the first time in my life where I actually understood what that meant to give so fully of yourself. Because before that time, there were a lot of selfish things that I would do. With my husband, I would fight for, a morning off, or I would fight for, not putting the kids, jammies on that night, or giving them a bath. It was kind of a battle between my husband and I. I don't want to give him a bath, I'm exhausted. And he would too. He would be in the same way. And so it was the first time I didn't have my husband. It was all on me. And it was like boot camp. It was crazy, and it was very hard, very challenging. But it was the most amazing time, because I feel like I got strengthened through that. I really, truly do believe that. And through that constant giving of myself, I feel like I was more spiritually nourished than I ever have been. And I'm not gonna say it was easy by any means. It was very, very challenging, but it was such a good challenge. I was constantly going, constantly catering to my children and to the household and all of that. It was just so selfless of a time, and I had no choice at that time, And it was something I'll never forget. And I'm thankful that God gave that to me. At the time, I was like, God, what are you doing? Why would you do this? Like, I was like a little kid, like, who had to clean up their room. I was just like a mess, a hot mess, not wanting to do it. And then once I accepted it, and once I just like took charge of my, what I could do, I did that, and it was something I will never forget. And that's where it clicked with me, how giving you receive, because every night I went to bed at like 8 o'clock because I was so exhausted, so tired. But I've never felt so fulfilled in my life. Truly and honestly, I've never felt so fulfilled in my life, and I think it's because I gave so much of myself, and I think in giving of ourselves, God gives us that place in our heart that is longing for something. Every heart is longing for something. And I feel like I filled that void of like longing for something, like every time like my husband gave me time off before or whatever. Yes, it was nice in the moment, but it never made me feel complete and whole in the way that I could, it would take away all of what I was longing for. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like the first time where I really truly understood what God was saying, and probably walking the cross, carrying that cross. I can only imagine how that was probably not easy, not at all, but God was fulfilling what God the Father was asking him to do. And so with that, that's probably what helped him carry on. And so I just encourage all of you, me included, because now my husband is back. And so I once in a while get my mindset on that again. Like, oh my goodness, like I need time off, or whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, if our vocation is being there with our children and our family, like that is what's going to fill us up as well. That is going to be what kind of fills that void, because when we're looking to fill a void within us, it's because we're not doing something probably the way that God is intending it to be. And so the best way to fill that void is by asking God, like, what is it you want me to do? How can I honor you? There was a time in my life before I had kids, I was actually engaged to a different guy when this whole thing happened, and I just felt like I didn't have a purpose. I could not figure out what my purpose was at the time, and I really, really struggled with it. Like, God, what is my purpose? Because I felt like I wasn't called to be married to him at the time, and I just felt very lost, and I finally asked God, like, what do you want me to do? Like, what is my purpose? And I didn't hear him right away. I'm going to be honest. Like, there was some hard times, and then it clicked with me what he asked of me, and that was to move to Hawaii to do a ministry there. And once I got there, I felt fulfilled again in the way that I was constantly giving myself. So I've noticed the times in my life where I feel the most fulfilled is the times that I'm giving of myself. That's when I feel almost more at peace than any other time. And I think the reason is because we are called to serve God. And through serving my children and making their meals and all of that, I am serving God, like in a sense, like I am honoring God. And that is what we're called to do. And that's when I feel most fulfilled, is when I put myself last. That's when I feel like I put myself last. Like, I will say there are times like I just feel very, very tired, like a lot of the times now I have 4 kids and it's go, go, go. And then around 4 or 5, I am exhausted. I'm so, so tired just recently. And so I also do have to listen to my body in that sense. Like, I don't want to be worn out so that I can't give. So it's one of those things where it is a balance, definitely. But it's something that I constantly need to talk to God, have an open conversation with God about it, and a lot of the times you feel like you're probably talking to yourself, like, God, like, I'm so tired. Why am I tired? What can I do? Like, because I am one of those people who it's hard for me to sit around. There's so much that needs to be done all the time that I have a hard time sitting around, and so sometimes that's what I have to do to take care of, myself, to put others before myself. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of one of those things you just have to take it day by day, step by step, and figure out, God, what can I do? How can I love you? And sometimes I do feel like God lets me be tired and exhausted for a reason. I feel like it makes me slow down, and it makes me see my weaknesses, my humanity, and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to be humbled in that way. But it's a totally different thing if you're lazy, and I can fall into that trap. I actually, before I had kids, would fall into that trap all the time of just like binge watching TV and doing all of these things that were like, I'd go shopping all the time when I didn't have kids. Like, it's so funny, the things that I used to do where I'm like, man, I cannot even fathom doing that right now because I just don't have time to do any of that and stuff. But I think that if we do have free time, instead of being lazy and stuff, we need to be giving. Like, we can go to a homeless shelter and feed the homeless, feed the poor, like do the Beatitudes. If you're kind of in that state where you don't know what your purpose is, read the Beatitudes, the works of mercy, and do those. Go to funerals. Like, even if you don't know the person, that might sound really weird, but go to a funeral and pray for that soul. If you're kind of lost in what to do, maybe have just, your kids all started going to school, you have a whole bunch of time, you don't know what to do, or maybe you're an empty nester, like, use your gifts and talents to serve God, not yourself. Because that is where we are going to feel empty, is when we feed ourselves first, and stuff. So anyway, I hope this helps, because we are living in a world that is constantly saying, you first, you figure out what you want. And it truly needs to be God first, others second, and ourself very last. And so I think that's something that we all need to balance. I need to balance that too. I need to make sure, that I am living that fully too, for God, because I can get sucked into it just like anybody else, and stuff. So just remember, God first, others second, and myself last. And that is what will give you a full and complete life. A life for God is if you live your life that way. So anyway, until next time, I will see you all later. God bless. Bye.